Welcome to the Unconventional Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Moses, certified financial planner, licensed realtor, and founder of Me Financial. If you're an accredited investor feeling overwhelmed by managing your portfolio and looking for alternative investment strategies that go beyond the traditional stock market, you're in the right place. Let's head into today's episode so you can start taking control of your financial future. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. This is going to be part 2 of our Accessory Dwelling Unit episode, ADUs. And if you don't know what those are, they're like the buildings in your backyard, like we call them a casita here in Phoenix. And people are, I think that they're all the rage, especially with home prices, if you're looking to have a family member move in, or if you're looking to just expand the amount of square footage that you have in your house, an accessory dwelling unit might be the way to go. And I originally wanted to do this because I was surprised at how complicated it was to actually get the ADU on the property, how much they were, and just all the details that went into it. So to talk about this, I have Tom Mulhern here, and he is the co-founder of AzADU here in Phoenix, Arizona, and they basically build them from the ground up. And so thank you so much for being on, Tom.
My pleasure. I enjoy talking about ADUs.
Yeah, it's fun. And I think it's fun to talk about because people are interested in it, but they don't know a lot about them, you know? Sure. And so when you know about all the little details and stuff, again, that's what I'm fascinated with anyway. So in our last episode, we kind of covered what an ADU is, your plans, that you have some cookie cutter plans and what it takes to put it on the property. So let's kind of get into paying for an ADU, because you said that you have ADUs from $140,000 all the way. They're usually like $140,000, $160,000.
180. Yeah, and that's for the ADU, and then there's the site cost. So,
right.
Yeah.
So that's for the building itself.
Correct.
Versus not what's in the land and
Correct.
what you're having to put in the electric and all of those sorts of things. So it would be additional when you're adding the plumbing and the electric and whatever else might be needed. So what are the ways that you see people paying for these?
So our business model is we basically collect payments along the way. So it's not like a custom home where we're getting draws. We request that, payments, progress payments along the way. So we have people that have cash, or we have people that use a HELOC. We haven't seen anybody refinance the house because they're probably locked into a 3% mortgage. Or we see a couple examples are mother-in-laws selling their house and using the equity from that to build an ADU in their kids' backyard. I think their philosophy is the kids are going to inherit this anyway, so I'll improve their property. I'll have a place to live. I'll be close to my kids, my grandkids, and I'll just use that equity. So that's primarily what we've seen. There's definitely financing mechanisms out there. There's a lot of banks, second mortgages if you want to get a second versus a HELOC, but yeah, there's lots of ways to finance them. Yeah,
and people always mention construction loans, but those are such a pain in the I just don't think that most people will go for them once they realize what they have to submit all the time in order to get a draw on it. So people love to throw that out there, but I don't ever think that that's like really a great option. It's not easy.
One.
Yeah, it's not easy.
First one.
Yeah. Okay, so you take them over time, and then do you ever talk about, like, do people get appraisals after they're done getting their ADU on their property, or are they mostly just not really concerned about that because they're just concerned about having the living space?
So we don't really get into that, what the appraised value is, but I talked to a friend of mine that does a significant number of appraisals across the valley when I got into the business, and I said, tell me about how ADUs appraise. And he said, Tom, most of the time, if a home has an ADU on it, and it appraises below the asking price or whatever the contracted price is, most of the time the buyer will make up the difference regardless of the appraised value because they have a use for the ADU, right? If you're moving a family member in and it comes in $50,000 below the appraisal, you're not going to walk from the deal. So I tend to think your value increases. I've not seen pre-construction and post-construction appraisal to actually see it, but I believe that you'll get your value out.
Yeah, I would think that people would, and it would be something that would be very hard to appraise because it's not something that your neighbor would have right?
Sure,
You know,
exactly.
so if
No
you're the
comps.
only one in the
Yeah.
neighborhood and you've got to go 2 miles away to find a comp, then that might not be worth it.
Well, it's always interesting to me because, you know, we don't build attached, but if it's attached, it would be considered additional square footage, which would be the value of your house, right? If it's
Right.
worth $400 a foot, the ADU is worth $400 a foot. We do detached, so I don't know why it would be less, because to me it'd be more attractive. But yeah, I haven't really focused on appraisals.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that people are that concerned about it because, again, most of the ADUs are being used for family in some way,
exactly.
shape, or form, or that they just want more square footage. So can we continue talking about the ground, getting the groundwork? Are there like a lot of pitfalls with that? Like a lot of issues that come up when you're doing that? Like, is there always a surprise, or is it oftentimes just pretty straightforward and then there's occasionally a surprise?
That's an easy answer. There's always a surprise.
Okay.
Yeah. No, there's no. You know, you're talking about usually areas of town that have been around for a while, at least where we're building, and you got to figure out where their water is. Water's usually in the front. Sewer, if they have an alley, it's usually in the back, but we're bringing some all the way to the front. Electric, if they have poles in the back, you usually can attach a meter there. Natural gas, we're doing one that the service is all the way in the front, and so we're having to bring a pipe all the way to the back. And there's others where the service meter's in the back. So it's a puzzle. And then when our contract pretty much says, this is what we think we're going to find, but as soon as we put a bucket in the ground, we could find surprises. And I think I mentioned on the last episode, we just came across an abandoned septic tank. We've hit lots of irrigation lines that aren't even the existing owner's irrigation lines. There's fourth generation irrigation. So you hit that. We've come across relocating some of the SRP service irrigation lines where they're right underneath where the ADU was going to go. And we've even found abandoned SRP lines. So it's pretty interesting when you start digging what you're going to find. And that's the piece of the puzzle that's really complicated. It's not hard to build an ADU. Our contract says 180 days, and if this trades show up when they're supposed to, we can get it built in 4 months. So we can go from meeting someone, if they're really wanting to build something, signing a contract, getting them a quote within a couple of weeks, signing a contract a couple of weeks after that, having a permit in close to a month, because we talked in the last episode about our pre-approved plans, standard plans, and 4-month construction. So 6 months would be super aggressive for me to sit here and say that, but there's no way it's going to take a year if you're moving fast and we're moving fast. But, and that's if we don't hit surprises. So,
And then the surprises always probably add time.
Yeah.
And money.
Yeah.
Really. I mean,
Yeah.
because if you were doing natural gas and you needed to bust up some concrete in order to do it and to run a new line, that's, significant.
Well, and a lot of backyards have a lot of mature landscaping. They've got a small gate. They're pushed right up against their property line. They've got a pool.
That's another question. So the gates to the backyard. So what about access? Do you have to bust down gates sometimes because it's so small?
Gates, walls, go around pools. Yes, we've had to do all of that.
Wow. Because I didn't think that was another thing I didn't think about was access. I'm like, you need to at least have an RV gate, right? Or do you need to have bigger?
Well, you can get mini excavators that can get back there. The biggest part is the excavator to prepare the pad. So that you need a piece of equipment to get back there for that, because they don't want to hand dig a pad.
No.
And then getting the lumber back there. A lot of AC units are craned from the front over the top of the house. And the trusses, believe it or not, are so lightweight that you can actually just carry them back there and guys can lift them. So it's just some of the equipment and some of the materials.
Okay. And then on the interior, do people pick their tile and everything, or you have set tiles and design elements that are part of your package?
Great question. So on our website, we have a kind of a standard finishes page. So if you go on that, you'll see the appliance package, you'll see the cabinet package, you'll see the fixtures, for the bathroom and the kitchen, the doorknobs, the doors, all of that's on there as our standard features. Now, a lot of people are like, well, this is in my backyard. I don't want an asphalt shingle roof. I want a shake shingle. I want a tile to match our existing.
Yeah, they want to match whatever they have, make it match their house.
And
a lot of times.
Yeah, I would absolutely want to do that. So we end up customizing probably more than we really want to, but we're very conscientious that we're working in someone's backyard and they want it to look like when you walk out of their house and they go into their ADU, it doesn't look like this, thing dropped out off the moon.
Right.
So yeah, we work with our customers with that.
Yeah, because they probably want it painted the same color.
Stucco, same finish. Yeah, batten board siding in some cases. Yeah. So yeah, we're willing to do that, and most of our trades are pretty good about that.
Okay. And then I would like to pivot a little bit to the new laws or the new law that was passed about ADUs. Do you think that, because I know that some of it, in the classes that I took, it was, okay, it needs to be set. How far do they have to be set from the wall, I should say the property line? But and I think it was 5 feet, but it didn't say, is it from the roof line or is it from the base of it? There's a lot of, I think, things that are pretty nebulous. And I think maybe that's what you're seeing in the cities, as to maybe they're not willing to work with you and some of them are more willing to work with you. But do you think that the bill that was passed in Arizona is clear enough to develop ADUs in the future? Or do you think that there's going to be a lot of things in the court?
No, I think it's very clear.
Really?
Yeah, I do. It's because then you're really dropping into building codes, right? So what they basically said is you can have a side yard and a backyard setback of 5 feet. So you can build in the rear yard setback. A lot of houses are 3 and 10, in R16. So you can go to 5, and if it's, like I said, if it's an alley, you can go to the lot line. So you don't even have to have a setback if it's on an alley. Your back wall could be the fence,
and then the roof would hang over.
So
the fence,
it could hang over into the alley. Yeah,
really?
Technically. But so then you get into the eaves, right? Do you want a 0 eave? Do you want a 1 foot eave? Do you want a 2 foot eave? And a lot of times they look at their house and say, well, I want it to match my house. So then we'll design the eave like that. Now, if it gets pushed towards the house, let's just say they've got a limited amount of space, then you start talking about firewalls. So there's distances, and I'm not an expert on that. Our building guys are, but I think the minimum is 5 to 8 feet. So you have to stay 5 to 8 feet away, or you've got to firewall. You want to only have to firewall the ADU. You don't want to get into having to firewall the house, and it's really not that difficult, quite honestly. You plug the bird holes in the eaves a lot of times, and then you wrap a sheet of drywall around the exterior. So it's for a typical firewall. If you're restricted on space, under $2,000.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's not that big of a deal.
No. It sounds like a big deal.
Yeah,
Oh
it does.
my gosh,
It sounds like a big deal.
Yeah, but I mean, we're building within, and by the way, if we're building on the 3 foot side of a house, we don't have to stick to the 5 foot. We can actually go to the 3 foot, and then you could have your 1 foot eave, and you're kind of close to your neighbor.
Right. And you can go up 2 stories.
I'd have to take a look at that. I think the instances you can go up as high as the main house. So I think if you have a 2-story house, but I thought it was restricted to 15 feet, but I could be wrong.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think. But and every municipality they can be less restrictive as the state, but they can't, or they can be more, but they can't be less, right? So the state bill kind of trumps that. But that's why we talked about it last time, is that it depends on the municipality you're working in. Phoenix loves ADUs. They're great to work with, from the staff to the council. They're very pro ADU, and that makes it nice. And quite honestly, it's for us, the only place we're building and the best place to build, because there's not a lot of HOAs in the center of town, and you typically have large lots with small houses. So, I mean, the ideal ADU situation is a large lot with a small house. And when I mean small, I don't mean, 1,200, 1,400.
Compared to the lot,
right.
It is a small house.
And no pool. Or if the pool, it's on the left side or the right side, or,
And then you have the other side where you can put the ADU.
Right, because if the pool's right in the middle, you start talking about having to fill in a pool and grading and drainage and all of that. So, and on an alley, because the alley means the sewer's in the back, and usually means there's electric poles, so you can come right off them. Now, there's some abandoned alleys, but it serves the same thing. The manhole may be in your backyard, but it's in the back instead of having to go all the way to the front. Because when you got to get the right slope for 150 feet for your wastewater, it can get pretty deep.
Yeah, I bet it can.
Yeah.
So are there any mistakes or pitfalls that you see homeowners make with ADUs, or that's pretty common that come up?
I since we stick to kind of our little niche, I don't, we haven't come in to save somebody, let's say, but I think on paper it sounds really easy. Like the cities are even starting to talk about, well, we have plans that are pre-approved and you can build it in your backyard. So you think, great, I just saved an architect and I just, it's already approved. You still have to figure out how to hook up to the utilities, and you still have to figure out how to get equipment in your backyard, and you still got to be ready to hit something that you didn't expect to hit. So it's not as easy as it sounds.
Those plans might not fit on the way
100%.
that your land is situated, because every
100%.
backyard is so different.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And they've asked us to participate in that. And but you basically then you give up the right to own your house plan. So they'll put us on their website, but they won't say it's our plan.
Oh.
And so we just thought, you know what, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. But yeah, I think I really am encouraged by the industry and the cities and the forward thinking. I think Phoenix, I've been in the real estate business since the 80s, has done a great job with transportation infrastructure and staying ahead of it and really anticipating where the needs are for the future generations. And I think ADUs will be a common term in 20 years.
Yeah.
And there'll be lots of them, and there'll be a lot of people doing them, and there'll be everything from container homes to stick built to modular to garage conversions to, attached and detached, but it will help the community.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm okay with ADUs as long as I'm not looking at a 2-story that's, butted up against my property line, looking down into my, that's where I kind of have an issue with it. But otherwise I'm like, go on with your ADU and have a great time with it.
Yeah.
Whatever it needs to do. Cause I agree with you. We do have large lots with smaller houses on them, which I'm very grateful that I have that for my house, right? Cause I can have a pool and the plants and everything. But it is wasteful because it's like, you see a lot around town, like the churches have a lot of land and they'll sell their land.
Right.
And then I'll be reading in the Business Journal, be like, okay, well, all that land just went to 5 houses. I'm like, 5 houses? Like,
Right.
you could have had hundreds of people, or something. Not that everybody wants to live in an apartment, but still, it doesn't seem right sometimes that only 5 people get to go on that land when there's a lot of people that would like to share it.
Yeah, density. It all comes down to density. But no, you're right. I think the 2-story, I think that's more restricted. I talked to a friend of mine in California, and the ADU ordinance, I don't think applies to the coast. And so people are having ADUs that are 2 stories that are blocking the view of the houses that aren't right on the coast, and it's a problem.
Yeah, it's hurting their home values because that's what they bought their home for
the view, for the ocean view. So I do think that I'm not saying everything's positive about ADUs. Again, there's going to be situations where you're going to go, oh my gosh, we've got 20 built on our street and it's become a rental street. I say to people, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf, right? I mean, the legislation's been passed. It's going to happen. So your choice is to...
And we need housing. And I really have been saying that I think because of housing's so expensive, that families are going to start moving back together or living together longer. And it, that happens all over the world. I'm not, we were very unique in having all of that land to be able to spread out our families, and hopefully we've all learned boundaries by now so that we can move back together.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think, when you put the price of housing aside for a second, think about what, a care costs in an assisted living.
Yeah.
So if you could have an in-law, a mother-in-law, your mom or dad or in-law in your backyard where you could keep an eye on them because they're not in need of intensive care, versus
or there was someone in
to
take care of them during the day while you were working in your house.
Right.
I mean, there is just a lot of benefits to all of that.
I think it's a good, family environment if you're close to your family and you can make it work. And I think it does save money for a lot of families.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, before we sign off, I do want to touch on, because I have done a lot of the financials, and I know this isn't what you get into with the financing of, or renting them, I should say, because you hand over the keys and then you're like, okay, we're done. But I have done a lot of analysis of how many years it would take to recoup the cost if you were going to rent it out. And a lot of times, I mean, it's a significant amount of time, 5, 10, 12 years, depending on what the rental income is in certain areas. Because I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to build this and then I can rent it and then I'll be able to sell it for more. And they're just really hard to price. And it's not as simple and straightforward as what people are originally saying. I'm not saying people couldn't figure it out, but you do need to have the cash in order to build it and to invest in something like that, even if you were going to rent it out. So you guys, I just want to reiterate, like, do your homework on something like this, because they're just a lot more complicated than you think. And if you did want to rent it out, you do have to have a stove hookup. It needs to be an accessory dwelling unit, not just a casita with maybe a bathroom and a refrigerator. You have to provide, a central area where they can access their panel. There's a lot of things that you need to be thinking about if you are actually going to rent it out and, have it as a business. So I encourage you to talk to someone that knows about ADUs and renting them out, but it is all very new, so I'm not sure if you were going to resell it that you would necessarily always get what you were, what you put into it.
Yeah, I think the economics are, it's like it's got a pencil, so to speak, as we say in the real estate business. And I think the economics work at some level, and with the states attached and detached, where you could turn a single family rental into basically a triplex, it probably looks a little bit better. But yeah, there's a lot of costs. Do you buy a lot and build 3? Do you buy an existing house and fix it up and build 2? And there's probably some price point that it works in rental income stream. But yeah, I think you got to really do your
and
research
parking
on that
too. So
yeah,
are you renting it to 2 people and you already have 4 people in your house, and then like you literally have nowhere to park? Even your street parking is filled up. So there's things to think about. We
talked to a company that bought several thousand homes in the downturn, and they still own them. I can't think of the name of them, and they're modeling ADUs in California, and they own several thousand homes here, and they're going to try it next. And they talked to us about being one of their builders. But interesting enough, kind of building on what you said, they said the 2 things we find are a real advantage if you're going to do a rental is parking and some storage. So, it's not, if it's a rental and they're going to be there 12 months, they want some storage and they want to be able to come home and park, in front of the house or even on, gravel area that's off the street. But they said that was a big marketing point for them. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love this whole movement, total side note, of not doing away with cars, and all of that. And they're like, oh, we built this, especially in California, right? And there's no parking lot. I'm like, well, yeah, but then you need to build a train or something,
right.
We're stuck with these cars. So
Right.
either you're going to do trains or we're going to do parking lots. I don't, what to tell you, but yeah, you got to think about the parking. And I mean, because someone that's renting, right? I mean, let's pretend they even have a little kid, and I mean, they're not going to be carrying groceries and, like 2 blocks away.
Weather. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So there's definitely logistics. And then just on the financing side, they are a little bit more expensive. I think people think that they could do them for $50,000, and that's just not the case. So it is a significant investment. And then to recoup that based upon whatever your rents are and, the expenses that you've got. So it took a lot longer than what I thought it would.
Yeah. I mean, to the extent you can build it for less, that all comes down to the finishes and the insulation and the air conditioning and all that. So you got to be careful about building something inexpensive that won't rent because it's not quality.
Yeah. Well, and that goes on to my whole spiel about real estate. I just can't believe the pickle that people get themselves in just to save a couple $100.
Yeah.
It's like, if you would just spend the money like on an AC unit, right? Like just spend a couple extra $1,000, you're going to save yourself so much headache down the road. But people are so cheap. They don't want to hire, a licensed contractor. They don't want to pay, it's like they want to do this stuff themselves. Sure. And it just opens up this whole thing. And I was actually talking to one of my good friends. She's she lives in Kansas City, but she's a real estate attorney. And I was complaining about like how cheap people were and how it just backfires all the time. Right. And I'm like, it's just crazy to me. And she's like, and she just paused and was silent for a second. She's like, This is my whole job. It's 100% the reason I have a job is because people are cheap, because they don't want to hire the lawyer. They don't want to hire someone like you to actually do it right. You know, they think they're going to save all this money. And in the end, you just don't end up saving all that money. But
I agree.
Yeah. So, well, Tom, thank you so much for being on.
It's a pleasure.
I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge about ADUs with us. I hope you guys learned something about ADUs, and if you wanted to have one in your backyard, Tom's website is az-adu.com. I will have it in the show notes, and as he said, they have all their floor plans and costs and everything on their website if you are interested in that. And then I would imagine if you wanted to do a different one besides build, he would also be a good resource for you to, with people in the industry and stuff like that.
Happy to help any way we can.
Yeah. So you guys, thanks so much for listening. I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Unconventional Investor Podcast. I hope you feel more confident in how you can grow your wealth using the strategies I shared in this episode. If you're ready to take the next step in diversifying your portfolio outside the stock market with alternative investments, head to mefinancial.net/contact us to book a 15-minute consult call with me. Let's discuss how we can work together to achieve your financial goals. Until then, I'll see you on the next episode.